Hello and good evening. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Professor Dr. Kulantayan Mani of the Department of Community Health under UPM's Faculty of Medicine has recently been elected the new chair of the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety. The Global Alliance represents more than 200 NGOs from around the world that advocate for road safety initiatives. He is the third person to chair the Alliance since its inception and is the first to hail from Asia. We welcome Dr. Kulan to the show. Thank you for joining us today and congratulations on your appointment.
Thanks.
All right, Dr. Kulan, I want to begin our conversation today perhaps with a look at Malaysia's own track record for road safety. Our statistics are pretty grim. We are the third highest road traffic mortality rate in the Western Pacific region. And I'm just wondering how your tenure at the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety, how that your tenure might perhaps help advocate not just for the global road safety agenda, but also perhaps look to improve the road safety situation at home.
Yeah, thanks. If we look at Global Alliance for NGOs for Road Safety, we have a long-term goal. The long-term goal is by 2030 for all countries to reduce in terms of number of fatalities and injuries by 50%. That is a target being set by the World Health Organization, and every country are supposed to fulfill and reach that particular target, minimum 50% reduction. And we hope our own country, Malaysia, is also towards that particular target, and hopefully we can reach that numbers as well.
So if you look at the reasons why we have fatalities, not just in Malaysia, but across the world, in terms of, the different sources of potentially bad road design, human error or bad, driving culture. And we know that, different countries have different notions of what it is to drive and how to drive and so on and so forth. So is there a kind of breakdown you can give us about the contributing factors behind fatalities and injuries?
Yeah. If you look at Malaysian context, for last year, for year 2021, we recorded 370,286 road crash, and this resulted in we losing lives of about 4,538 lives. And if we go by the category as how you have asked, the largest population is always the two-wheelers, the motorcyclists. They take up almost close to 70% of those deaths, where their numbers were 3,112, and followed by the car users, and then third are pedestrian. What is interesting over here, which I want to share here, is the first three groups, motorcyclists, car drivers, and pedestrian, they will take up a total of 90% of the total fatalities, of the total road fatalities. Whereas the balance 10% only is being shared by the other type of road users, say the van users, lorry, bicycles, bus. And that is the first message I want to cross. The second one I want to cross is the least contributor in terms of road fatalities in Malaysia is coming from the group, from the bus drivers and passengers. It means public transport is relatively much more safer compared to any of the private vehicles. That's one message. Second message is, among the private vehicles, the two-wheelers, the motorcyclist is the most risky type of vehicle to be used on the road. So this is the two type of main information that we can pick up from the statistics. It's not only particular for last year's statistics, it's for the past 2 or 3 decades. This is where we stand at.
Well, okay, so and that, what strikes me is that, so many lives have been lost on roads, perhaps even preventable. And I guess as we're talking to you now, we are, there are many people who are preparing to go on the road or will be on the road soon because the Balik Kampung exodus is expected to see traffic volume increase significantly. I believe Plus was projecting some 25% increase, 2 million vehicles daily on highways. How would you then, hope to see perhaps particularly during festive seasons when the volume is very high, that road safety is prioritized, or road fatalities and road accidents are prevented and minimized?
Yeah, during festive seasons or during when large travels happen, our request is wherever you have an opportunity to use public transport, do kindly shift to public transport, because comparatively that is the most safest mode of transport. And within the public transport, the rail-based public transport is much, much more safer compared to the road-based public transport, as well as the air-based public transport is also much, much more safer. So that's first option. But of course, we know that, all of us can't move to public transport during the same time we want to travel. For those who are traveling using private vehicles, our message to them is, please reduce your vehicle speed, no matter which type of vehicle you are using. Every vehicle, the moment we raise the speed, then there is always a risk for a crash to happen, because it is a bit more challenging to control our vehicle at a high speed compared to a lower speed. That's one. And in the event a crash happens at a high speed, the impact is much, much more severe, because as a crash happens at a high speed, then the transfer of energy is much more higher. And our body, if we are staying outside of a vehicle, the maximum transfer of energy that we can absorb or we can tolerate is only up to 30 kilometers per hour. So say if I'm a pedestrian and I'm outside a vehicle, a car comes and crash me at say 50 or 60 kilometers per hour, most likely it can be a fatal crash, because my body can't tolerate that amount of transfer of energy. And if I'm staying inside a car, okay, then I have one layer of the car to give me a protection. Okay, so all those people who are outside the car, a pedestrian or motorcyclist or a bicyclist, these are the three group of people where we call them as the vulnerable road user, because there is no any layer of protection for them. They are openly exposed. And to these three group of people, they have to be extra careful. And during this Raya travel, we have to be very clear here is, the crashes can be two types of crash. One is the crash happening during the travel from one location to the other location to celebrate Raya. That's one. But the second one is happening is within the township, within any towns who are receiving outside travelers to their towns. Okay, say for example, any small rural town, their normal traffic volume is small. And suddenly during Raya, there is a big influx coming in. So the people, the local community are not used to that sudden change. Okay, so their activities might remain the same as previously, where they might be traveling using their motorcycles or walking or what. And this new exposure, that's when sometimes the risks increase for them. So keep that in mind. The statistics for crash includes both travel, intercity travel as well as intra-city travel.
Okay, but Kula, you talk about the different modes of travel, and they're not quite equivalent, because you're not going to be taking a plane to your doorstep, nor a public bus, right? I mean, these are maybe for long. There's still the last mile, or the choices that need. So it's probably going to be a mix for anybody, even those using public transport. It's going to be a mix of vehicles that they're going to be choosing. But I want to come back to my earlier question, which was actually, what are the determinants? What's actually causing these crashes? And in the last time we had you on the show, we were talking about motorcycles. And the preferred vehicle for Malaysia's working class, really. And the question is whether the infrastructure that is there for motorcycles is subpar. There are a lot of potholes that we read in, that are the cause of people dying, who are riding motorcycles and such. So can we get a sense of why is it that people are getting hurt and getting into accidents?
Yeah, thanks. Perhaps maybe I can just answer the first question very quickly on terms of the last mile. Of course, last mile will happen anywhere in terms of the full connectivity, but we are not much worried on the last mile, because the last mile, when it happens in the city, the speed of the vehicle will be much, much more lower comparatively to the intra-city travel. So as long as we can get the speed down, then the risk goes down on that part. That's one. Coming back to your second question, okay, in terms of the causes. So we have to be very clear here in terms of looking at our country. Out of the 30 million vehicles that we have, more than 50% are motorcyclists. So knowing that motorcyclists are taking up more than 50% of the fleets, so therefore we have to provide them a safe travel. That's one. Second is the reason why we need to provide them safe travel is in any system, no matter which country you belong to, if you have a mixed traffic here, what I mean here is you have motorcyclists, you have bus, you have cars, everything you have a mixed traffic with a different speed. That different speed is where is a risk towards crash. If you have a group of people with the same speed level, then the chances for a crash is much, much more lower. So on that ground, whenever we have mixed traffic, whoever who is the vulnerable among the mixed traffic, they have to be segregated and put into a special lane. So that is the justification why motorcycle lane comes into picture, because to make sure that they are safe among themselves. So once motorcycles travel with only motorcycles in certain pathway, that particular pathway, their travel is much, much more safer because the speed difference is more, it's very much low because it's within the same type of people.
Can I just follow up very quickly on that, Melissa, and you know, ask you, Kula, you know, when you last went on a motorcycle lane, and when I last went on a motorcycle lane, I can tell you they're very scary. They're very narrow. You know, the cars are prioritized in the design of our roads, not motorcyclists. Motorcyclists seem to be an afterthought, and you know, often it is created in a way that it feels like it's an obstacle race. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, when you last looked at a motorcycle lane and the design of motorcycle lanes, is it subpar?
Yeah. As per design, as per intention, it is fine. Okay. But then what I would agree with you is it has to be also regularly maintained. I mean, the maintenance is not only for the main roadway, but also for the motorcycle lane. So once the motorcycle lane is well maintained, I believe the demand will be there. So it's mainly supply demand. Once we supply any good products, I believe the demand will also be there. Hope I've answered that.
Yes. All right, Dr. Kula, we're going to take a quick break. We will come back and continue this conversation on improving Malaysia's road safety track record. More on Consider This in just a couple of minutes. Stay tuned. We will be right back. Hi, thanks so much for staying with Sharad and I on Consider This. Let's continue our discussion with Professor Dr. Kulantayan Mani, newly elected chair of the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety. Dr. Kulan, you know, we were talking about vulnerable road users, those on two wheels, and I want to talk about the other two-wheelers, the cyclists, and more specifically, Basikal Lajak or illegally modified bicycles. It's been highlighted in the news once again. I'm just wondering what you think when you're seeing these types of headlines. What do you want the public, but also policymakers, to keep in mind or to better understand about the issue of Basikal Lajak, about how it's used, who uses them, and also how to safely regulate this issue?
Yeah, if you look at bicycle lajak, it's basically is where you modify the bicycle. Okay, so when you modify the bicycle, if you see the features after the modification, and all those features indicates that it's moving towards a risky vehicle. Okay, and the indicators for that is, if you see the sitting, it has been raised from the normal setting. So once you raise your sitting, and it's much more further compared to the ground, then the stability is much more effective. That's one. Second is, if you see, they have removed the brakes in the bicycle ladder. So any vehicle, if you remove the brake, then it's very challenging to stop the vehicle. That means you need to stop the vehicle using your legs or what, okay? So again, that means the speed can't be reduced immediately if you don't have a brake. So again, as I was telling you, the main issue is speed, because speed kills people. The third one you see is in bicycle ladder, the design, if you see, is they remove the bells. Of course, bell is more for communication purpose between one vehicle and the other vehicle, okay, or one road user against another road user. So the moment you remove it, again, then you have to be dependent on your voice level in order for you to alarm or to alert anyone. Okay, but the last one, which is a bit more concern, is most of those bicycle ledger users rarely use a bicycle helmet. Okay, so two issues here. No brakes makes the speed always high at every time. So keep in mind, when you are riding at a high speed, you are endangering yourself. That's one. And second, you are also endangering anyone else who are using and sharing the same roadway. The roadway belongs to everyone, every road user who are using it. So we have a responsibility not only for our safety, but also for every road user who are sharing the system. That's one. And second is not using a bicycle helmet. Even though there is no law which requires to use a bicycle helmet, but we don't have to wait for one. If we believe a bicycle helmet can prevent head injuries and brain injuries, then why are we waiting for the law to come into picture? So the concept or the new norm should be is we should start using safety products or safety devices because we believe in its safety, because we believe on its safetiness, and not mainly or merely just to fulfill the legislation needs. So that
Yeah, sorry, can I just jump in here and ask you? I mean, it seems to me that there are very different classes of bicycle users. There's those who have very expensive bicycles, who get all the gear, spend 40,000 ringgit, including helmets and, and those lycra pants. It all is part of a kind of culture, but it's an elite culture. With the bicycle laja, we're looking really at, again, the working class youth, mostly boys. I don't know if girls are involved in this, but there is something about the class nature of this, because we do know that kids and bicycles are not allowed on highways. And I think there is, in fact, you can be fined for going on a highway with one of those modified bicycles, or any bicycle, in fact, without permission. So there is a class element, and I wonder if, Dr. Kula, you think about questions of culture and class when it comes to driving, comes to safety. Who can afford a helmet? Who thinks about it? The joy that young men get from going very fast. These are cultural issues that shape behavior, ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. Um, there are many factors which affects the behavior, and culture is one of them. Ken, but again, coming back on the costing part, all these safety devices, there is a wide range of price. Okay, from the lowest price even up to the highest price. Even the lowest price itself meets the minimum requirement of the safety standards. So in terms of a decision to buy a particular safety product, not much related to the costing issue, because the lowest cost itself is still meeting the minimum standards. Let me give you a kind of example. If it's for a motorcycle child safety helmet, okay, you can get one for a price of about 60 ringgit, and each of these helmets can last about 5 years. So 60 ringgit over 5 years means per year is 12 ringgit, per month is 1 ringgit. So this is a kind of a decision whether you want to invest on road safety or not. It's much more cheaper compared to a mobile phone's price, which the same person can afford to. That's what. Coming back to car seat, child seat. Previously, yes, it was much more higher. But now, a minimum price, for a price of 200 to 250, you are able to get a child seat which fulfills the required standards. So again, a child seat also can go up to about 5 to 7 years.
Right.
And 5 to 7 years, if I divide the price, is also very much low.
Dr. Kulan, on the issue of child seat, and I know that you feel very strongly about this. You were involved with Safe Kids Malaysia, which looks at protecting children from injury, from injury. So some injury prevention initiatives there. And we've seen also kind of legislation push this through. The government has mandated the use of a child restraint system or a car seat. Then there's also giving subsidies, 300 ringgit subsidies for car seats. Yet, road accidents are still the leading cause of child mortality in this country. Why is it that we're seeing children die needlessly in car accidents when we have the legislation, we have the financial support? What is missing here, Dr. Kulan?
Of course, the government has taken a good initiative in terms of the child restraint seat. So things are moving on the right direction. Okay, but only government's push might not be enough, might not be sufficient. We also need the population to also move the agenda. Okay, because we are the main group who are going to benefit from that particular usage. If our child start using the child seat, it's our child who's going to benefit from it. So in terms of using child seat, maybe I can just touch a bit more clear over here is getting a child seat is important, but the most important, the second part is to get a standard child seat who fulfills the requirement, that's one. And the third part is to install it correctly. If we fail to install it correctly, that particular product is not able to give us the protection level that it is supposed to give us.
Yeah, but
So
Dr. Kula, can I ask you, if you have a family with 4 children, how do you work the car seat? Because I don't have children, so I'm not entirely sure whether you can put 2 children on a single seat. I'm assuming you can't, and there are only so many seats that can go into a car, right? So because there are families with lots of children, I mean, we see that on motorbikes as well. Kids squeeze between 2 parents on a motorbike. These are the strategies of the working class of Malaysia, which are many who struggle. Yes, you say 60 ringgit is not much, and I think you're right. But when they struggle with everything else, another 60 ringgit is going to be something for them. So I'm just going to ask you, when it comes to car seats and children for the working class, how does it work out?
Right. So coming back to your question, if I correctly understand, say it's for large families. I think that's the issue that you're trying to raise. Okay. Say for large family, whatever challenges that we face for a car is the same we're going to face for a motorcycle as well. So motorcycle also has its limitation. Okay. It can only take in 2 passengers. The more passengers you take, of course, you may cater for the mobility issue, but our concern here is safety issue. So similarly, when it comes to cars as well, in a car, you will have 2 manuals. One is the car manual. This is very important. The car manual will tell us in that particular car that you have, how many child seats can be installed and where can it be installed. So that will tell us the maximum number of child that can travel using car seats in that particular car. Okay. Easily, I can tell you for any sedan car, the 2 seats in the second row will fit in for a child seat. The most safest location is in the rear seat behind the front passenger. Say now I'm in the driver's seat, I have a front passenger, the seat behind the front passenger, that should be the first choice for us to install the child seat. The second choice is behind the driver. Okay, most of the cars, if you look at the car manual, they will recommend these 2 locations. The follow-up locations, whether the 3rd seat or the 4th seat, very much dependent on that particular car. Okay, and our recommendation is the first choice I've told you, the second choice is here, okay? And the third choice, if the middle seat is allowed to use cars, is allowed to be installed with car seat, yes, that's the third choice. And always the last choice is the front seat. Preferably, I don't want to open up the front seat passenger to be used for child seat. But if I have more children traveling at one point of time, then I got no choice. I will have to use that, but keep that as my last choice. And among the children, who is the eldest, that is the person who is going to go to the front seat. The child who needs the most protection, the most youngest child, will go to the first choice seat. So that's how the ranking goes. Okay, who needs the highest protection? We put them in the first choice. who needs the least protection among them, that is the person who's going to go to the front seat. And say, finally, if you're going to go to the front seat, it has to be front facing, okay? And preferably try to move your seat as further as possible behind, so that now your distance and the airbag source distance is the furthest that we can provide. That is the best that we can provide for the safety of the passengers going to sit in the front.
All right. Dr. Kulan, thank you so much for joining us on the show today and sharing some of your knowledge with us and our viewers. Appreciate your time. That was our conversation with Professor Dr. Kulantayan Mani, newly elected chair of the Global Alliance of NGOs for Road Safety. That wraps up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris.
And I'm Sharad Kuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, and good night.